The big twist on All-Star 7 is the fact that nobody went home. Each week we had a top 2. During the judges' deliberations, the top 4 was highlighted, and then the rest of the queens we considered as safe. So I got to thinking, since we got top 2s each week, what if we also got bottom 2s? And then, just for like a little extra spice later on, what if that bottom 2 lip-synced to the song that the top 2 lip-synced to? Obviously, for each week, the bottom 2 will be chosen from the safe 4 queens, and I will do my best to explain why each pair of the queens would have been in that bottom 2. Of course, you can disagree with me. If you do, when you do, tell me in the comments. But before we begin, I just want to give a special shout out to my supporters on Patreon. You guys are being great. Thank you so much for your help. And if you cannot support me on Patreon, you can always just like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Thank you so much. Starting from episode 1, the safe 4 queens were Jaida, Jinkx, Raja, and Vivienne. The maxi challenge for this week was the Write, Record, and Perform a Verse challenge, and it may not be a controversial statement to say that I think that Jinkx and Raja, while being very great drag queens and very great competitors, did perform the worst in this challenge. So, in my opinion, they would have been the bottom 2. And when lip-syncing to Ella Fitzgerald's version of Old MacDonald, I think it's obvious that Jinkx would have won that one. For episode 2, the Snatch Game, the safe 4 queens were Jaida, Shea, Vivienne, and Yvie. If you watched my What If There Had Been Eliminations on All-Star 7 video, you probably already know which 2 queens I think did the worst in Snatch Game, but I'm gonna tell you now what I think again, because I know that there will be comments about me allegedly hitting a certain queen, which, like, if you think that, grow up. So, Jaida's Snatch Games of Prince and the Lady Chablis, I think, were fucking fantastic. They're very underrated. Jaida's 2 Snatch Game performances were done differently, meaning in different styles, where her Prince was absurd and just, like, hysterical and had very little to do with what you could do with Prince as a character. Compare her Prince to Fred Armisen's Prince. It's, like, 2 different characters completely. And then her Lady Chablis had a lot of good jokes. So, I think that there is no way that Jaida was one of the worst ones. The Vivienne, of course, did really well, but she was simply just underrated this episode. So I think that the bottom 2 would have been Shea and Yvie. Shea's 2 characters, she had like a joke performance, and Yvie for the boogeyman, I mean, the whole joke was the pun and then Rico Nasty. That was basically Vanjie doing Bad Babies, so that's why they were my bottom 2. Rumor Has It by Adele would be the lip sync song, and just like originally, I think that Yvie would have done better than Shea in the lip sync. Great, now that all of Shea's fans have clicked off, us adults can continue with this video. So, Episode 3, we had this season's ball, and the safe 4 queens were Jinkx, Monét, Vivienne again, and Yvie again. Now, I think that we can all agree that the worst 2 queens in this ball were Yvie and Jinkx. Yvie because of her Vanna White look and her design look, and then Jinkx because of the look that she designed. The 2 would be lip-synced to Beyonce's Green Light, and yeah, Yvie would beat Jinkx here. Episode 4, here we had the improv challenge, and the safe 4 queens were Jaida, Monét, Shea, and Trinity. Who do I think would be the bottom 2 here? Trinity, definitely not. I think that she was the best one out of these 4, and I couldn't really decide between Monét, Jaida, and Shea. I expected more from Monét from this challenge, so I don't know if it's fair for me to judge her based on my expectations on her, so I did have to go and look at the runways. And yeah, looking at the runways, I think it's pretty clear that Jaida was the best out of the 3, so the bottom 2 this time would be Monét and Shea, lip-syncing to Love Will Save the Day by Whitney. I don't know, I could see either of them winning this, but I do think that Monét, just in general, is a better performer, so I'm gonna give her the win here. Episode 5, the Drag speeches, our safe 4 queens were Jaida, Monét, Trinity, and Yvie. Yvie had such a beautiful message with her Drag speech, so there's no way that she's going to be in the bottom 2, and Monét was really funny. Definitely funnier than Jaida and Trinity, so for me, Jaida and Trinity are the bottom 2. The 2 of them will lip-sync to Better in Color by Lizzo, and Jaida wins this one. Episode 6, with the girl groups episode, our safe 4 queens were Jaida, Jinkx, Raja, and Trinity. So out of these 4, Raja just, wow, like she can be in the bottom 2 for this, and Trinity also had a very great look to her. It does work in her favor that Jaida had a very similar look, and, you know, Trinity executed it much better. So just as collateral damage, Jaida and Jinkx are in the bottom 2 here, lip-syncing to Why'd You Come In Here Looking Like That by Dolly Parton, and I think Jinkx would win this one. Next we have episode 7. What the fuck was episode 7? Next, we have episode 7, where the queens had to reimagine RuPaul's popular looks, or at least his favorite looks of his own. And our safe 4 queens were Jinkx, Raja, Vivienne, and Yvie. What Vivienne did wasn't very inspired, but it was very clean, it was very well done, so I cannot put her in the bottom 2. Yvie and Shea had a similar idea of just like turning the original looks upside down and building off of that in a way, but Shea executed it so much better than Yvie, so Yvie has to be in the bottom 2, and Jinkx, you know, Jinkx in a design challenge. So yeah, again, we have Jinkx and Yvie in the bottom 2, and this time they would lip sync to I Want Love by Jessie J, very much so a nothing song. I guess Yvie wins. Sure. Episode 8 gave us the acting challenge, the Santa School for Girls challenge, and our safe 4 queens for this episode were Jinkx, Monét, Shea, and Yvie. I think that Jinkx was probably the best out of these 4 in the challenge, and Monét was great too, so that really does only leave us with Shea and Yvie, which is quite a shame because their runway looks were so fucking good, but in the challenge they really were the 2 weakest ones. Shea mostly because of the role that she got, she couldn't do much with it, and Yvie, again, just like collateral damage, she's here. The 2 of them would lip sync to Super Freak by Rick James, and I think that this one is more of like a groovy song in a way, so I'm gonna give the win here to Shea. Episode 9 with the TikTok challenge, which again, are we living in a simulation? Why are they doing a TikTok challenge? Why is this the reality that we're living in? The safe 4 queens for this episode were Jaida, Raja, Vivienne, and Trinity. I cannot put Trinity in the bottom 2 because of her runway look. It's just too magnificent. Her challenge was a little bit of the same old, so if any of the 2 queens that I will put in the bottom 2 could be swapped with someone, it would be with Trinity, but yeah, this runway look, it's just too pretty for me. I'm sorry. And then the other queen that I'm saving from the bottom 2 placement will be Raja, simply because you're giving up 50-year-old person to make a TikTok dance challenge. That's a little unfair. Even so, she did a pretty good job. Vivienne tried to reimagine the assignment, and for me, it didn't really work. And between Jaida and Raja, as I've said, I gotta give Raja some breathing room here, so the bottom 2 for me are Jaida and Vivienne. They would lip sync to the monologue from Designing Women, and yeah, Vivienne would win this one. Episode 10 with the Kennedy Davenport Center Honors Hall of Shade, aka just like a roast episode. The safe 4 queens for this week were Jaida, Raja, Shea, and Yvie, and Jaida definitely in the bottom 2. Her going kind of off script with her prince was funny because she was still clearly doing a character. Here she was messing up, and as funny as it was to see her messing up, it wasn't good funny. Like, we weren't laughing with her, we were laughing uncomfortably at her. Raja was brutal in this roast, and honestly, I would have swapped a certain queen from the top 4 with Raja there. Here's another shocker. I think that Yvie was really funny. I think that her jokes were much better than the jokes that she presented in the Drag Race speeches, and so much better than anything comedy that she previously did in this season. Thus, I think that Jaida and Shea would have been the bottom 2. The 2 of them would lip sync to Kings and Queens by Ava Max, and since it's again a very much so a nothing song, and because it is a little more poppy and whatever, I'm just gonna give it to Jaida because Jaida embodies more of that poppy, bubbly feeling that this song kind of has. I don't know, it's Ava Max, like what are we talking about here? And lastly, Episode 11, The Drag Race Gives Back Variety Extravaganza. I've already talked about this in my What If There Had Been Eliminations on All-Star 7 video, but out of the safe 4 queens, which were Jaida, Jinkx, Vivienne, and Trinity, Jaida and Trinity just... Again, yes, what they did was very interesting and would have been probably impressive if you saw it at a club or just like a regular performance. But for example, let's make an analogy. If you're at a singing competition and they ask you to perform something that isn't singing and you're still like, I am gonna sing, you should by default be somewhere in the bottom. So yeah, Jaida and Trinity, for me, were the bottom 2, and the 2 of them would have to lip sync to Kylie's Supernova, a fantastic song, a fantastic album, stan Kylie. And seeing all the choices Trinity made with her lip sync during the season, I think we can all agree that Jaida would have won this one. Okay, so we finished all of the 11 episodes. Now let's look at some numbers. So the queens that I put most times in the bottom 2 were Jaida first 5 times, Jinkx, Shea, and Yvie 4 times each. Then we have Trinity being there twice, and then Monét, Raja, and Vivienne being there only once. Out of all of those times, I think that Jaida and Yvie would have won most lip syncs, 3 each. Jinkx would have won 2, Monét, Shea, and Vivienne 1, and Raja and Trinity, none of them. But then again, Raja winning none out of 1 is better than Trinity winning none out of 2. Guys, it doesn't matter. But I would love to hear who you would have put in the bottom 2 for each week. And that's it. That's the video. Could you tell that I did this without a script? Is it too obvious? For now, this is the last What If video for All-Star 7, but if you have any ideas, you can always leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.